What up, B Squad? It is your boy JB, and I am here today, you guys, with a brand new review for The Real Housewives of Miami, Season 7, Episode 13, you guys. And this episode is titled Next Up, Marbella. Now, before we go ahead and get into this review, if you guys are watching this video or any other video on the channel and you guys aren't subscribed yet, then I need you guys to do me a solid favor and stop taking me out on this date and having me pay for it at the end of it. You guys know the routine. You can do me that favor by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, turning on your post notifications, you guys. And with that out of the way, without further ado, let us discuss this episode of The Real Housewives of Miami, shall we? All right, guys. So if you guys watch this episode, please tell me your thoughts and your opinions down in the comment section or in the live chat. I would definitely love to know what you guys thought about this episode. What I will say is, leaving this episode, Stephanie, you ain't do yourself no favors because you straight up lied. But that ain't got nothing to do with nothing, because we'll definitely get to it once we get to it. Now, so this episode, remember, everybody is going to Marbella so that Julia can ask her friend to be the godfather to her sons, right? Now, we see as everybody's meeting up, and we find out at this particular moment that Alexia and Marisol have decided that they are not going to go to Marbella because of Stephanie and Stephanie's comments about her plane. And I was like, okay, you know what? I honestly understand that, because Stephanie was very off-putting when it came to the conversation about that plane in the last episode. I will give them that. From her starting up talking about asking Larsa about inviting Lisa, it was weird. Then when the girls got into it at the dinner table, you want to bring out this seating arrangement and talk about who sits where, and then if they can't do a 22-minute flight, then they can get a ride back to from Marbella to Seville. So I'm actually here for Marisol and Alexia. So they sent a text message to the group, basically letting them know that, hey, we're not going to be going to Marbella with you guys. We've had the conversation with Julia, and Julia understands. And little Miss Stephanie's in her feelings about this, because she feels like the last time that she saw Alexia and Marisol, that everything was good in the hood. But I was like, Stephanie, you are very off-putting, and it does very much so come off as if, you know, but I've said this about Stephanie, and I don't have a problem with you using your wealth and everything to benefit you and all that kind of stuff. I don't have a problem with it. It's just like you do, in my personal opinion, way too much. What happened at that dinner, it didn't make any sense to me. Like, I just really felt like you were putting 20 on 10. Yes, did Adriana and Kiki get into it at the table? Yes. But this is Housewives. You guys go to dinner and you guys are gonna have some kind of an argument at dinner. Shit. If you remember the previous episode, it might be the same episode or episode before, Larsa and Lisa were having it out at the table, but you didn't have this the reaction that you have to this. You didn't have it when it was Larsa and Lisa. So I'm perplexed when it comes to that whole situation, right? So they're on the bus ride to the plane. Larsa's like, it costs so much money to put the fuel in the plane, and that is the problem that they were having. It's like, you want to it's almost as if you're doing this stuff and you're doing it to throw it up in our faces and be like, yeah, if it wasn't for me, you guys wouldn't have went here, you guys wouldn't have went there, because I'm the one who sponsored it using my private jet and things of that nature. So I get where, and it's really hard for me to sit here and say I'm defending Alexia and Marisol, but I am actually defending Alexia and Marisol, right? So in the text message, it did say that, they had the conversation with Julia and Julia understood, right? So Stephanie wants to know, well, what was the conversation? And so Julia told them told her that they feel like you're very bossy when it comes to everything. And so Stephanie says, well, if I was so bossy, then why are you riding with me to my plane? And in that particular moment, I was like, ding, 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 ding. There you go, ma'am. That's why they didn't want to go. It's because it's like you're doing us a favor when nobody really asked you for this. You volunteered your services. So, bam, there you go. It's like you throw it up in people's faces. So, that's that. Now, we make it to Marbella, the house that Julia's friend lives at. So, his husband, or I think it's his husband, so he wasn't there, but they did meet up with some other friends. I will say, Lisa, girl, were you drunk? Because especially when we got to that dinner, when you wanted to give a toast to the people that weren't there and want to pour some champagne out for them, ma'am, no, thank you. They're not deceased. They're still very much among in the land of the living. But the house is very nice. You know, everybody was talking about how it very much so gives White Lotus. Now, I've never watched White Lotus, so I don't get the White Lotus reference, but neither here nor there. So they do sit down, and Julia's friend asks, do any of you guys have anything special going on in your lives currently? So Lisa says, well, I have some good news. And so they were like, so what's the good news? And so Lisa reveals to them that she is officially divorced from Lenny. So congratulations to you, Lisa, for finally being divorced from Lenny. So hopefully going forward, we do not. But actually, what I will say is this season, we haven't really heard anything about Lenny. I think Lisa listened to the girls and probably also to the fans, right? Mostly the girls. I think the girls were tired of hearing about Lenny. Me personally, I didn't have a problem with it. But she's officially divorced from Lenny. Everyone was happy for her, with the exception of Larsa. Larsa sitting over there with a stank look on her face, like what? She's like, "What are we celebrating? More lawsuits?" I was like, "Oh my god, Larsa, you're insufferable." Like Larsa is so fucking insufferable to me. It is just something about Larsa Pippen that just, yeah, no. So at one point they were having another conversation, and they were still talking about Alexia and Marisol not coming. Now, what I also will say is, I don't know why Stephanie keeps bringing it up that Alexia and Marisol are not here. Or what is that going to change? What is that going to do that you keep bringing it up? Okay, they're not here. Like, what do you want people to do with that? And even Julia said, she understood why they're not there. If if the person who is the most like affected by this, because this is Julia's thing to ask her friend to be her son's godfathers, if Julia's not upset about it, then I just don't, for the life of me, understand why Stephanie is so bothered by it. Like, it's making no sense to me. It really makes no sense to me. But I mean, you guys can tell me what you think and what you feel. But Julia's cool with it. Now I do find it a little odd that Julia's cool with it, because I feel like if this were a year ago, Julia wouldn't let this go. But now that Julia's good friends with them, I think Julia's just like, it is what it is. We can, however you guys feel about that, cool. So Julia did ask her friend to be the godfather. He said yes. Then we see, as they had the dinner. They went and called Martina up, and he saw the boys on FaceTime. Yada 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 yada. Don't care, right? Also, what I will say is, I will say I slightly feel bad for Julia when it comes to, because she did talk to her friend about the fact of that her daughters are not really around. But I also will say to you, Julia, is your daughters are grown, but I mean, you still should have had a conversation with your daughters prior to going through with this adoption. I think you should have at least consulted. Like, you can make I mean, you're an adult. You're going to be the one that's raising these kids. But also, like we mentioned on the panel, which we got to get back to that eventually, but like we mentioned on the panel, you and Martina are women of certain ages. So you also, I can see why your daughters are upset with you because you didn't include them on such a um monumental event in your life. Because let's just be for real. You got more years in front, you got more years behind you than you do in front of you. And I'm not pushing anybody towards the grave, but I'm just saying you and Martina are women of certain ages. So you got more years behind you than in front of you. And if something were to happen to you, to what happens to these boys, then your daughters become instant parents to them, and they didn't ask for this. So I think you might want to sit down and think about that kind of situation and why your daughters may feel the way that they feel. Do I hope that your daughters will come around eventually? Yes, I do hope that they do come around, but you got to put yourself in your daughter's shoes, and that is all I have to say when it comes down to that. So after that, we do see as I know Gertie and Kiki were having a conversation about what happened the night before with Adriana. So Kiki doesn't want to have the conversation with Adriana here, and I'm glad she didn't want to have the conversation there with Adriana. Now we see as Adriana is having a conversation with Lisa. Now, what I will say is I actually do, like I said it last week, and I'll say it again this week. I believe Adriana. I don't believe Adriana meant ratchet. And if you actually go back and kind of listen to it, it does sound like she's saying wretched, but with Adriana's thick accent, it sounded like she said ratchet at the same time. So I think she really did mean wretched, and she even put up the dictionary. Put it up in the dictionary where she was saying wretched. So I agree. I do believe Adriana meant wretched. I don't think that she meant ratchet. Which you guys can tell me what you think and what you feel, right? Now we did find out that Adriana had text Kiki, but Kiki didn't respond to her. And I'm not gonna sit here and say that Kiki had to respond to Adriana. So that's all that we got for that particular part. So then we move on. Now you guys remember that also part of this trip is celebrating Stephanie's birthday, right? And remember they were wearing those dresses, right? And so they got their dresses, and then we see as they are doing a carriage ride. So three women per carriage, right? Then we see as they saw some flamenco dancers. They were able to interact with the flamenco dancers. So after that was over with, we then see as Stephanie wanted to pull Alexia to the side, and she wanted to have a conversation with Alexia about her and Marisol not going to Marbella on the plane. And I was like, oh my God, girl, what the fuck? Julia told you what it was. Why are you sitting here making a big stink about this, right? So Alexia was like, well, why don't we have Marisol come and have the conversation with us? And she's like, no, Marisol is the one that, did this for my birthday. So I don't want to have the conversation with Marisol. I was like, but it's literally both of them. But whatever, girl. I really don't care. So then Alexia tries to, Alexia explained, like, Marisol didn't want to go. Honestly, and this is me defending Alexia, and I don't like defending Alexia, but Alexia was being nice to her. Alexia wasn't trying to hurt Stephanie's feelings, because she literally told Stephanie that, um, that Marisol didn't want to go and she just wanted to spend the time with her. I was like, that was nice. But then Stephanie wants to go on and just keep badgering. So Alexia said something, and Stephanie told her how she felt. And so Alexia was like, well, that wasn't the intention. But Stephanie wouldn't let Alexia get a word in. And I was like, oh my God, girl, please shut up. Like, let the woman talk. That was getting on my nerves with Stephanie. It's like, please let her have one word in. So then Stephanie is like, well, because actually that's when Alexia was like, see, this is the problem. You want to set the rules. And I was like, exactly. She wants to set the rules. So then they got into it and they walked away from each other, right? So they went back over there where the group was. And so Stephanie decides to tell Lisa that Marisol and I think she was more specifically pointing out Alexia, that Alexia didn't want her on the plane. And I was like, wait a minute, whoa, pump the brakes. That was not her. That was you, because you literally asked Larsa if Larsa wanted Lisa if she could get along with Lisa on the plane. You brought that up, not Alexia. Like, it wasn't even Alexia that brought that up. And so I was like, Stephanie, you're lying. Like, you're absolutely lying through your teeth. It was something else that she said that was all her. Like, everything that happened, she literally tried to place it on Alexia and Marisol. I was like, no, Stephanie, we're not going to sit here and do that. We are not going to sit here and play that game. You are the one that mentioned that. So what are we talking about? So we also see as Kiki and Adriana had a conversation. Adriana, she apologized to Kiki, and Kiki accepted her apology, and I like that. But Stephanie, you literally sat there and lied and made it like it was Alexia. Because then you said that they sent a text message. Now we didn't see it. We don't know anything about a text message. And she was also talking about them, and that's what it was. Them in the backseat of that car. Ma'am, that was you in the backseat of the car, pissed off and upset. You're the one. Oh, that's what it was. She lied about as well. Because Alexia was like, you threw up like if the girls can't get along on the plane ride there, that you would potentially leave some behind. And Stephen was like, I never said that. And they played the footage back where you literally said out of your own mouth, if these girls can't get along for 22 minutes on the plane ride there, they can get a ride back to there. They can get a ride back. Like, Stephanie, you are lying through your teeth. And the fact that you lied about not saying that they could find another way back, you did. The fact that you're sitting here lying and saying that it was Alexia who didn't want Lisa on the plane, that's factually inaccurate. It was you who asked Larsa. Like, if you want, like, how did you even flip that to put it on Alexia when Alexia hasn't had an issue with Lisa this entire trip? The only person who's had an issue with who's had an issue with Steph, the only person who has had an issue this entire trip with Lisa has been Larsa. So Stephanie, this is why I say when it comes to Stephanie, I'm not a huge fan of Stephanie's, because Stephanie, she's just a no. And I wanted to like Stephanie. And here's the thing. Here's what I will say. Do I dislike Stephanie? Not really. I don't dislike Stephanie, but I'm not fond of Stephanie either, if we're going to be honest about it. I'm not entirely fond of Stephanie. And that's really all I got. Let me know what you guys thought about this episode down in the comments below, you guys. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on your post notifications, you guys. And also, share the video. And until next time, do me a solid favor, you guys. Stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves. Wash your hands. Be blessed. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.